All right, guys, I'm doing an extra video today. I'm not going to have this come up on our regular feed, but this is an important topic that I really want to cover deeply, and there's a back and forth discussion going on. I know it's really boring for those who are not interested in taxes or are not Americans, because this applies only to Americans. So I'm not going to put this so it advertises in the regular feed. Feel free to skip it, but give it a thumbs up and stuff and move past if this doesn't apply to you. But I really want to drive this home because the importance of this discussion is high. There is a group of people who are being preyed on by other Americans. This is a really big thing, and it should be really obvious, but it's really hard to spot, especially if you are feeling fear, as many Americans are. That's what people are looking for. If you have this conspiracy theory, and it's not unfounded, that the government is out to get you, that they're lying about everything, that they will set you up to make you criminal, and that they want to destroy your lives and not get tax money from you. Many people have fallen for this trick that the government is out to irrationally destroy people's lives, and that's not what's ever going to happen. They may be doing terrible things. That's potentially true, for sure, but they're always looking to gain something, whether it's they want to gain money, or they want to gain power, or they want to protect their positions. All those things are normal and are predictable. What is not going to happen is the government is not going to set up normal everyday taxpayers to put them in a position where they will go to jail and cost a lot of money instead of paying the taxes that pay for everything else that the government does. They want tax revenue in general. So they're going to do generally sensible things. And while they do potentially want to sometimes catch you, they do audits, right? They do want to find you and do stuff. One, they don't have the resources to do that very much. So that's not a sensible thing to go out and do for the IRS, right? It doesn't make sense that a division that would then make money only through audits would be doing so and then give up their ability to audit. But that's what's going on right now, right? So that doesn't mean you should go take advantage of the fact that they can't audit you. They can, if you're definitely going out to take advantage of it. They will find a way to audit you. But if you're trying really hard and doing the right thing, especially if you're doing the right thing, the chances that they're going to audit you is extremely low. And so do the right thing, do the sensible thing, do the logical thing. It's the best position you're going to be in, both because you'll have more money to fight any potential fake IRS threat that might be out there, and you're not going to flag as doing something weird. You're just going to be, because they know what you owe, right? So you can't hide from them. There's no loophole. So there's this back and forth conversation that's been going on for a while, and I know we've had a few videos on it, but I want to point out a few really critical things in the discussion. One, the argument that we're playing games with the wording of the law is absolutely unfounded to such an degree that I intentionally, as part of the conversation, started posting the actual paragraphs out of the IRS tax code to see if they would be attacked as playing word games. And as I predicted, they were. And even when I pointed out that they were the tax code and not me, the person continued. Not because they're trying to scam anyone, right? Because they have been absolutely hoodwinked by apparently lawyers and accountants who are sense them as fearful and easy prey and are just flat out lying to them and convince them to a point that this person is fearful to the point they won't read the tax code. And if you quote the tax code, just paste it as if it's your words, they will attack you as that you are manipulating the words, that you're playing word games, which is not at all true. The IRS tax code is completely readable, and there's no way to misinterpret it unless you are doing the thing where people inject extra words that aren't there. Right? You have to play word games to make it say anything other than what we're saying. And they give examples so that in case you did that, you wouldn't fall for your own mental tricks, right? People's minds play tricks on themselves. We read into things when we shouldn't. This is why normal people aren't good lawyers, right? Lawyers don't read into things. That's like the trick of being a lawyer. Know the law and then know when you read it, if it says, you must do X, they don't go, oh, they meant Y, and then just make up that there's a law that they implied, right? Now, when I say, what's for dinner, my wife implies that I mean I'm hungry, which is almost never the case. If I'm hungry, I'm not too worried about what's for dinner. If I'm not hungry, I'm worried about what's for dinner because I need to think about it and make myself want to eat it. I need a little bit of prep time to be ready. So generally, I'm more likely to be inquisitive about dinner when I'm not super hungry. If I'm so full that I can't eat, then I don't care either. But in this general thing, I want to know what it is because I want to look forward to it. But it does not imply that I'm hungry. If I was, I would state I'm hungry. When is dinner? Do I need to have a snack or something? I generally would convey that I'm hungry if there's something I need to get across. Me asking what's for dinner never implies that I want it now or soon. It is more likely to be asked if I want it later, but it doesn't imply that either. It simply is I am inquisitive as to what we're going to eat. But my wife is convinced that by the act of asking, I must mean something else. And we've talked about this a lot, that she cannot separate herself from believing I mean something other than the words that I've asked. Laws are essentially written by autistic people. And if they are not actually written by autistic people, they are written in such a way that they would be. And lawyers have to act like they're autistic, meaning that they write what they mean and they read what is written. That is unique for the most part to people who are autistic. And that sounds crazy, but that's how autistic people see the world. Everyone else reads something clear and changes its meaning and swears up and down that it means this thing that is in no way in the law or the paper or whatever is stated. This is a challenge people have, but when it comes to the actual law, that's how it works. You can't just imply something, because while my wife would imply that I wanted dinner early, that I was hungry, someone else might say, well, he normally asks that when he's trying to prep for dinner, so it must mean he wants it late. Both are wrong. One is more likely to be true than the other, but both are wrong. It is not implied by what I asked. The problem with what people are doing with this law is that, sure, one person says, oh, what they meant was that you don't get this tax credit, that they wrote this entire thing for something that you then can't do, which makes no sense at all, obviously, right? Why would they take the time to write this huge law and then say, but it doesn't apply, right? That makes no sense. It should logically, instantly trigger you that, wait a minute, I've been played, right? Whether by my own brain or by my lawyer who's trying to get a quick buck from me, this is clearly not the case. The IRS did not make page after page explaining how you definitely get a tax credit if they didn't actually, one, have it be the tax credit, and two, want you to use it. The amount of effort that they go through to make this easy to understand is quite extreme. You can't make any argument that they don't want you to take advantage of this. This isn't just the letter of the law, which clearly it is, right? That's, I think, indisputable. It's because I post the law and they have to attack the law itself. That's them admitting, that's anyone admitting that they know the law is real, right? They have to attack it because they have nothing to work with. But there's so much extra explanation, so many examples given, that it is clear that even beyond the intent of the original writers, the current administration is putting in an additional amount of effort to ensure no one can be hoodwinked into thinking this law doesn't apply to them when it does. Now, the reason I'm talking about this is because I want everyone to have that absolute confidence, and because as an American, you are going to be attacked by your neighbors. You're going to be attacked by predatory lawyers and accountants. And we talk about this, right? We have these videos where it's like everyone's going to turn on you. As soon as you say you're going to move abroad, everyone's ready to pounce on you. They know that moving abroad carries fear, that it carries this life change stuff. And so people are scared. And they use that to prey on you. And that's exactly what's happening here. And that's why I want to protect you guys. I want everyone to have this confidence to go, wait a second. I can apply logic. I can apply facts. I can just read the law. And this is, this one thing. This is true for everything, right? Tons of people are like, if you move abroad, the government's going to get you. They're going to hunt you down. They're going to arrest you. And you're like, they're actually claiming that living abroad is illegal, which of course it's not. It makes no sense. And it's a violation of international law. It's a violation of every American law. If you talk to U.S. Border Control, which I've done, every time someone's like, they're going to be angry when you cross the border, they're like, what are you talking about? Our entire job is because Americans are allowed to cross the border in and out anytime they want. That's how the system works. It's part of being American, right? When someone says these things, when someone says that the IRS is faking it, when someone says you can't move abroad, they're not just attacking you. They're attacking the concept of America, right? Because these are things that Americans hold dear as very special things that Americans get as privileges and rights and powers that, sure, lots of other people get too, but many do not as well. These are points of pride of being American. So when people are attacking this, remember, they're not just attacking you personally, which they definitely are. They're using your fundamental Americanism to attack the concept of being an American, the things that make you American, the rights and privileges of Americans, including how we pay our taxes. And so keep that in mind, right? This is the level that people are going to go on, but they know that you're feeling uncertain. And so they will leverage this to heighten your fear and get you to panic. And when you do that, we become irrational, right? We start off pretty irrational, but once we feel fear, we get really irrational as human beings. And it's easy to believe that the tax code is a lie, that the entire government is run by lizard people, and so forth. But what we're talking about is as clear as it gets, deduction that you get when calculating how much you owe for your taxes. Now, we talk about it in terms of you don't owe any taxes because that's the end of the day. But in reality, what we're saying is and people who are trying to trick you will start with, you're saying you don't have to file taxes. Whoa, we absolutely said that you did. But they, in trying to discredit the concept, add this thing that was definitely not said. And we actually pointed out that you did in order to try to make it sound, to come up with something that would be wrong. Right? They know that that's wrong, so they add it because they have to find something to make it seem like it doesn't make sense, because logically the law does make sense. It's not even like a weird loophole. It's not we found some place where they, tuned the law wrong. We talk about how sensible it is. So it's a part of the calculation of what you owe. So if you live in the United States and you earn, let's say, $10,000 a year, guess what you owe in taxes? Nothing. Right? If you fall below a certain line, you don't owe taxes in the United States simply because you don't earn enough and you need every penny to survive. That's normal. And nobody attacks them and says, you're going to get caught by the IRS for being poor and they're going to audit you and you're going to owe more money than you could possibly pay. That's absolutely not the case. The whole reason that they have a minimum amount that you need to earn to pay any income taxes is because they know you need a certain amount to live on. That doesn't change because you live abroad. Nothing, like that's just normal. People accept that. If you then have children, that level that raises, right? And I don't know what the numbers are, so I'm going to make up completely fake numbers. So don't come in and correct me and be like, Scott doesn't know what the numbers are. I'm telling you, I don't know what the numbers are. Let's say at $10,000, you don't owe any taxes. But if you have kids, that raises to $20,000, right? And we all know that if you file with dependencies, kids who live with you, that you get to simply have a calculation. And this is so straightforward. You're filling out the form and it says, do you have kids? Boom, this is what the deduction is. Boom, put this number here, flip, look at this, get this number, put it back here, subtract this. And that's how you figure out what you owe, right? You have your starting number. My income is 20,000. I have kids, 2 kids. So this is what I owe. Okay, great. Right. And it figures out what base number you work on for calculating your tax rate. We all know this. Straightforward as can be, and it would be absurd for someone to say that you can't take the deductions that are right there on the paper. And that's what this number is. The foreign earned income credit is another deduction just like your kids, and you simply look at the form and say, was I actually foreign? Did I actually have foreign earned income? Yep. What qualifies as foreign earned income? Oh my gosh, that's so easy, right? Nobody can dispute that. No one can say we're playing source games or anything like that. They are so clear as to what it is. They go so many examples so that you can't possibly be fooled by a lawyer or an accountant that's going to trick you. I'm serious. You cannot. You have to just flat out trick yourself. You have to ignore the tax code. You have to refuse to look at it in order to fall for this, because they describe it. You don't need examples. It's that easy. But then they give the examples that every single time, literally every time that someone has tried to say that we're playing word games or coming up with a thing, one of the things that they claim is a given example in the IRS tax code to say that that would be exempt. Literally every time. No one has ever accused us of coming up with a situation that the IRS didn't use as an example. They're basically accusing the IRS examples of being fake. And the examples are in the tax code. Right? They're not separate from the tax code. They're actually part of the code. That's how serious the IRS takes giving you this tax credit. Because obviously, like we said in the other videos, because they want to encourage expatriation. This is a good thing for the U.S. government at the rates that it's currently happening, right? Again, if the rates changed in the future, they would change the tax code. It's that simple. But right now, there aren't enough Americans using the expat system, so they want to make sure that the incentives are high. Same as with any tax system. Very, very obvious, very straightforward. Extreme spirit of the law. This is as American, as supporting America, as being pro-IRS as you can get. And people like to threaten me. Oh, you're doing by telling people what the IRS wants, the IRS is going to come for you. Think about how insane that is. Right? Oh, there's a new McDonald's down the street. I'm going to tell people that there's a new McDonald's. Oh my gosh, by advertising this business that wants people to know about it, they're going to get you because they're angry that you're helping them. Right? The IRS put this in there for a reason. Sharing the thing that they're going out of their way to promote is the last thing that's going to make them upset, right? That's insane. It truly is, right? I am doing the absolute thing in filing my taxes correctly by declaring everything, by making it as public as possible, I make it so clear that the IRS never has to worry that I'm scamming them, because everything I do is so clear. I file and I actually, so this is stupid, but I don't take any of my child deductions, and I don't take my foreign earned deductions until the end of the year. So I pay my taxes all year. The IRS is holding that money. This is, again, stupid. You shouldn't do this. They're holding my money all year long. And then at the end of the year, and sometimes late, I file and say, oh, actually, I was successfully foreign the whole year. Because what if I ended up not being foreign? I'd rather pay, take that risk, and get the money back rather than at the end of the year go, I didn't end up being foreign. I moved back to the U.S. and I forgot to adjust my taxes. No, I don't want to take that risk, even though I don't expect that to ever happen. And yes, I would probably remember that I was doing that and adjust my taxes. I don't want it, right? And the kid thing, yeah, it's a little bit easier for me to do my budgeting, and I'm willing to put up with it. It's just easier that way, right? So I take zero deductions when I get paid throughout the year, absolutely zero. So the IRS has my money all year long. I'm going so far beyond what you need to do to be protective. Then at the end of the year, I take the straightforward deductions, take it right off the IRS page, just fill out the form, easy peasy, send it in. They know everything. They know every day of where I am. They know if the stuff applies, and they always honor the deductions. They never complain. They never audit, because they wouldn't, because they already have all the information. There's nothing to come dig through. What would an audit do? Audit sounds scary. That is a threat from people who have fear, and they think you'll have irrational fear. Honestly, I don't fear you, IRS audit. Let them audit me. Why is that a scary thing, right? I think it's silly. It would be a waste of my time. Like, I'm afraid of my time being wasted, right? I hate doing paperwork. So yeah, I fear that stuff. I know I'm paying my taxes correctly. The IRS can audit me all they want, right? That's fine. My IRS auditor will call me up and go, oh, your name got randomly drawn. I'll be like, everything's public record. What do you need to know, right? I'll be like, every deduction I take is this big obvious one. I really have kids. They're really here in my house. I really live foreign. You have my passport information, and I haven't been on a cruise, right? None of the things that cause you to fall into a, oops, I messed it up, do I do. Like some people do. They take cruises for months. You easily can run afoul of those laws because you didn't think about where you were. I'm very acutely aware of when I'm in an airplane, when I'm over international waters, how many days I'm using, and I don't take cruises. So you put that together. I know where I am. I know where I'm claimed every single day of the year. Coming up with my 330 is no problem at all. Plus, it's all in my passport. The government already has a record of it. So I don't even need to show it. I just go, yeah, there's nothing to, you've got nothing, right? The onus is on them to show that I was in international waters during a time when I've never been in international waters, except for flights, which I account for and give myself plenty of buffer days. Right. I make sure that I always have like 2 or 3 spare days in case of emergencies. So I don't even come close. They can't play the, oh, you cross midnight game with me. I have plenty of days to make sure that that's not the case. And they know that, right? So they are really not going to audit me. So, but even if they did, I have no fear of an audit. That's where only someone who's actually stealing money from the IRS fears an audit. Now, people do fear the complexity of an audit. I totally get that. But normal people, especially expats, aren't taking millions of little deductions. We're not doing all these complicated things. My taxes are really simple. I earn this much from my investments. I earn this much from my salary. And I do have to pay investment taxes, of course, right? They're taken out separately because they're not foreign earned. They're American earned. And they're American unearned, right? They're unearned income. So they don't count for an earned adjustment. And they have a completely different tax rate. So all these things, right? That's another part of the trick. So part of the trick is claiming that the IRS is lying and that the tax code itself is a lie. Part of it is getting this fear that normal deductions don't count. Part of it is creating this fear that Americans are guilty by being Americans and acting like Americans is bad, and that we should be scared of being American. And then part of it is this this fear of auditing, because we make it sound like an audit is going to jail. That is not at all what an audit is. And audits do come up randomly. It's kind of like jury duty. We all fear getting served with jury duty because it's annoying, right? It takes time. We're not sure what to do. I have to dress up. They might cause problems at work. It's a hassle. I don't know where to go. And it's a bunch of government officials, and you feel uncomfortable, right? For some reason, but we all do. So I get it. That's what an audit is like, right? It's this thing that happens to Americans from time to time because we have a weird tax system. It basically involves someone looking at what you have, and it's mostly a television thing. In real life, how many people do you know that have been audited? When I hear about someone being audited, it's almost always someone who's 1, very wealthy, 2, playing tax games, and 3, actually stealing money, because the IRS doesn't want to audit you unless they're actually confident that you're stealing money. So by threatening someone with an audit, by trying to make that fear, what someone is doing is trying to imply that you are not paying your appropriate tax taxes, and therefore an audit is scary. But that doesn't work because I am paying my appropriate taxes and possibly a little bit extra, but not like a bribe extra. Just I lean towards letting them have the money in case I make a mistake, they can just keep it rather than coming after me for it, right? Which can avoid some fines. I realize still stupid. I would make more money putting it in an investment or something, but keeps my life easy, right? And so I have zero fear of an audit. But that someone who's telling this to me has a fear of an audit tells us everything. The only way you can have a fear of an audit is if you are stealing money. So what we are hearing is that someone who's stealing money is afraid to use this system to lower their taxes because they're fearful that it will trigger them getting caught for something else. Now, if you're stealing money from the IRS, if you're committing tax fraud, absolutely, everything's out the window, and then don't take any of my advice and maybe consider not doing that. But you need to go talk to your people in the cartel or something if that's what you're doing, right? I know nothing about how to commit tax fraud effectively, right? If I was to commit tax fraud, they would definitely catch me right away. I'm just completely unknowledgeable about it. I've never looked into it. But I know people who've done it, and they definitely get caught, like all the time. It's a very easy thing to get caught for, right? And so that's very critical. Now, the next piece is because none of these things stick, right? Because an audit doesn't scare you. Like, I know I'm paying the right taxes. Everything's super clear. The next thing is to come up with this tax haven thing. I've never seen this one before. So there's this tax haven fear. And again, the person who's saying this is not the one scamming us. They've been scammed because someone trusts that they don't understand taxes or how American law works. And so it's going after them with just throwing things at the wall to see what sticks to make them scared. The next one is a tax haven. So a tax haven is something that businesses use, right? This doesn't exist for personal income tax. There's no such thing as a tax haven for Americans because we pay our taxes worldwide. It doesn't matter where I live. Jurisdiction has no bearing on the fact that I have to file my taxes and pay my taxes. And as long as I live outside the U.S., the amount that I owe to the U.S. is this very low number of taxes. I may owe taxes somewhere else that's irrelevant, right? I always owe a certain amount to the United States. It just happens to be zero. Right. But I still have to file. I go through my exemptions and I work out that it's zero. I don't just not pay my taxes. I actually take my appropriate deductions. I have kids. This is where I live. These are the numbers the IRS gives me. And you subtract that from your income. And the result is, zero. Right. So that's how that works. This is not a skipping your taxes thing. A tax haven is a skipping your taxes thing. That is where a business places its business in a place that does not honor international tax rate agreements and has a super low tax amount that it charges a business, possibly zero, and allows them to operate from there, even though they're not actually located there in most cases. So this could be an island in the Caribbean, and once people are throwing this out, you know that a scam is being run. Again, not the person who's posting it, but the scam is being run on them, and they aren't familiar with basic tax concepts. So tax havens sounds really scary. First of all, tax havens aren't illegal. That's a mistake. They often will get you caught, but because you're doing something else. If you're purely only using a tax haven, it's actually generally legal. But again, I'm not giving legal advice here, and this is outside the scope of the very simple taking a tax deduction thing. I don't use tax havens. I don't know anyone who does. So I'm just telling you, choosing to live in or do business in a country who happens to have a low tax rate is not itself illegal, right? You may have certain agreements with the countries that you live in, work in, have other business in, do business with that trigger a nexus that allows them to add additional tax because you are not paying international set minimum tax rates. It's complicated. Don't use this as advice. The only point is that the concept of tax havens is that you are in a place that lowers your tax rate and is not where you're from, and for business. It must be those three things, right? I mean, you can be born in a tax haven. It's still a tax haven, but it's not a tax haven for you. It's just your local taxes. So when someone's talking about your income tax, what you earn as a salary, and if someone throws out the word tax haven, you know it's a scam 100% of the time, guaranteed, because that's a business thing. It cannot apply to you, especially as an American. It doesn't apply to anyone, but it doesn't apply to Americans because our tax base is always America, right? And this is the thing that people complain about. So it's amazing that someone would fall for this tax haven thing because it's so clear that your tax nexus remains the United States. Where am I taxable? In the United States. Who do I pay my taxes to? The United States. Who declares that my tax calculation number is based off of zero income? The United States. It's not saying that my tax rate is zero, so it's not a tax haven in that way either. Even if that was business, it's not, right? This is the layers of not tax haven. I still have the high U.S. income tax rate. It's that my taxable base income is higher than my earnings, so I never have to hit that tax rate, right? So it's the same thing in Nicaragua, right? I still have to pay taxes in Nicaragua if I do a taxable activity. And that tax rate is higher than the U.S. is, I believe, or at least it's higher than, it's a very reasonable tax rate. But I have no taxable activity in Nicaragua. So you can't say they're not taxing me. It's that I'm not doing anything, right? A retired person who has no income, who just stands around in a place, a tourist who's in a place, who's not earning any money, we never think that they owe taxes. Yet, when someone's trying to play this trick, they're trying to play this word game, they start to imply that you're living in a place and that somehow you must have an income that would be taxable there. And you might. There are situations and countries and jurisdictions where that could happen. So it's not that it's an impossible situation, but they're implying that if it's a situation where it doesn't happen, a territorial regime like Nicaragua, where I do no taxable activity in the country as a person, that somehow I would owe taxes on no activity. Well, there's no income. Why would there be tax? Right? That makes no sense. If there was income, of course there would be tax. I'm not getting out of it paying taxes. I'm just not earning any money. And so that's a weird trick. Imagine a homeless person in the United States who's earning nothing and all they do is eat scraps that they find in the garbage and being angry at them for not paying enough tax. You're not claiming the United States as a tax haven just because that person is not earning any money. That's crazy. It's also worth pointing out that in most places where you're discussing tax havens, the United States is actually considered an international tax haven. It is one of the countries that does not meet the international requirements for being fully taxed as a business. So lots of companies base themselves out of the United States because it's a tax haven, but one that's so large that no one's willing to prosecute you for using it as one. So that's part of what drives so much business to the United States and to the UK. But that's business. Again, nothing to do with what we're discussing. So look out for these things. Look out for people denying the tax code, actually accusing the tax code of lying. Looking for people who are attacking being American, using the rights and privileges of Americans, like the things that we're proud of, right? You have a powerful passport, but you'd better never travel. That's illegal. Of course, traveling is not illegal. Of course, living abroad is not illegal. These are things that the government does a lot of effort to make possible and promote for reasons we've talked about in other videos. And definitely look out for people throwing around terms like tax haven or audits, trying to take things that don't matter or don't apply and make them sound scary, because Hollywood has made us fear audits as if they're going to dig through our lives and find something we did somewhere and tax us on it. Normal people aren't earning all kinds of extra money anywhere, and there isn't something to fear. Now, yeah, it's possible for a normal, everyday American. You get audited, and if you find out that you did some side work for someone that you thought nothing about, and over a period of weeks, they gave you several $100s, and it never got declared, and you may have a few $100s somewhere, and you may owe $20, $30, even $100 in taxes. That kind of stuff can happen, and an audit could turn that up. Those of us who live abroad, it's generally not going to happen because we just don't have those opportunities to make that kind of money. So we're actually, again, so much more insulated just naturally from audits than someone who's in the United States and has way more opportunities to casually have neighbors paying them for something. And even then, generally, that doesn't count. But it can, and you need to be aware of that, right? So that's where people sometimes have this fear. Well, I didn't know I brought in this income that I didn't think about, and I owe taxes on it. Yeah, that can happen, right? But it's generally not a huge thing. The IRS hits it all the time. It's not like they throw you in jail, and it's not like the numbers are generally very big. If they are, then you definitely knew and were not paying your taxes, right? It's just, this is how it works. So I hope so my goal, right, is one, to give you the tools to understand just how strongly everyone, your neighbors, culture, television, media, lawyers, accountants, are going to see you as easy pickings. They know you're scared. They know you're vulnerable. Most expats, or a very high percentage, are retirees. They're hot for being attacked with these kinds of scams, right? Everything sounds scary. You've heard about audits. You've heard about tax havens. You're afraid. So it's easy to paint a picture of things you've never had to look into before as being the scary thing that now you're involved in. Of course you're not. Right? It's not in the slightest what's happening. You're an American being an American. Don't let someone accuse you of being an American and try to threaten you that an American, right? Don't let American lawyers and American accountants and your American neighbors get angry that you're American and come after you for that, right? That's not right. It's not ethical. And there's nothing for them to threaten you over. That makes no sense. If they're mad at the IRS, let them be mad at the IRS. If they're mad that tax havens exist, let them be mad at the US that it's a tax haven, right? Let them be angry at those things. But don't let them trick you into feeling fear and uncertainty and doubt about things that are crystal clear and well proven, right? Then the next thing is you have to prove that this has been held up in a court of law. Well, it doesn't go to courts of law because it's upheld every day in the tax code. No one ever has to go to court and prove that the speed limit is really the speed limit, right? People go to court to prove whether or not they broke the speed limit, yes. But no one ever goes to court and says, the posted speed limit was 55. I got a ticket for doing 35, like this weird tax law. I don't even know what they're trying to say, right? But this is another trick. When something is in the negative, they're trying to prove the negative, right? You have to prove that the U.S. tax law isn't actually used, but it is used. So we can't prove that someone went to court and it was upheld because there's no situation under which someone would go to court for it. So that's a psychological trick, which again shows that the person who's asking actually knows. I really believe deep down all the things, mentioning the tax code, claiming that the tax code itself is a word trick, the threatening an audit, the using tax haven, which doesn't apply in any way whatsoever, completely unrelated topic other than it's taxes, right? In the kind of general sense, like sales tax is unrelated to income tax. And this concept, right, that you have to prove in court something, all of those would only come up if deep down they know that it's correct. And they're creating a framework to try to create a irrational but plausible feeling framework for a worldview they've already accepted and have now acknowledged in their brain as being wrong, right? And this is normal. This is not them being mean or trying to trick someone. This is what your brain does. Read the book, Predictably Irrational. When your brain knows that you've accepted a concept that is fundamentally wrong and that there's no logic that supports it, it will panic under nearly all circumstances and start to build a framework to try to plausibly convince you that you thought it through before you said it. But when the things you build are completely like this house of cards, right? These things are so obvious that if you stopped and looked at any one of them, you'd go, oh, obviously tax haven has nothing to do. Obviously an audit wouldn't be scary because you're not actually doing, oh, obviously the IRS wouldn't have put in these examples if they didn't mean, right? Every one of them shoots down the whole thing. And so that they're all being used to construct the only excuse for the fear, uncertainty, and doubt means that somewhere the brain has said, oh crap, we accepted something that we know must be wrong, or we at least know we have no foundation for believing in. Now we need to make ourselves feel better. Our own brain, our ego has to fix this illogical foundation for our belief system. And it's far more common to create irrational excuses that make no sense. They're not designed to be said to other people. They're designed to happen in your own mind to make you feel like you're being logical. When you repeat them to other people, you're stepping out of that internal thought process and exposing triggers in your brain that is your brain admitting it knows the information that you're repeating is wrong. So that's what we know, right? We have a really good implication that they have deep down in their subconscious realized that this information is wrong. And that's why they're exposing it. So the handy thing is, as an outside observer, when people do this, this is a way for you to know they don't believe what they're saying. But they feel like they do, right? Their conscious mind is like, this is the decision I've made and I'm trying to support it. And their subconscious mind is like, I need to announce triggers to let outside people know that I'm just making myself feel good. They need to know this is incorrect information. And so that's what we're getting, right? When you look at the information that I have, it's this simple. The IRS says it straight up, black and white. The fears that are being thrown at us aren't things we're afraid of. There's no foundation for them to be scary. And very importantly, we're talking about the system used by every expat everywhere in the world, right? We're not talking about a fringe thing. Oh, and then he also threw out this thing about these sovereign nation people, right? Oh, they don't have to pay taxes. They claim they don't have to pay taxes, right? They claim that taxes don't exist, right? That's crazy. We all know that taxes exist. They're claiming that every American who pays taxes has been tricked. That's crazy, right? 350 million people have been tricked into paying their taxes. What fools they are. And we're doing the opposite. We're saying 350 million Americans take their obvious deductions every day because that's how it's supposed to work. You cannot pay your taxes without figuring out what your deductions are. And so we're saying the system, using the IRS, paying your taxes, taking the deductions they give you, which everyone does, is the working system. And every person who does that every time is successful. So we can prove it. A third of a billion people annually prove what we're talking about. And one guy who does exactly the opposite proves that if you do completely the opposite of what we're talking about, bad things can happen. So he gave into irrational conspiracy theories, right? Somehow he convinced himself he knew he was not paying his taxes. He knew he was stealing. He knew he was illegal. No sovereign citizen actually thinks they don't have to do those things, right? That's not something they think. They want it to be true. And so they start lying to themselves to convince it. And we hear when they repeat it out, it sounds crazy, right? So this is what's going on. Again, that he used that as an example. Yet another, he clearly doesn't believe what he's saying. He knows that's the opposite. So we're using, every expat uses the system. It's universal. We test it every day. You don't have to question it. Right? This is a ridiculous thing to question. But that fear, uncertainty, and doubt, that attack from the people around you who are jealous, who are angry that you're getting a better life than them, a life that they wish they had, but for some reason they don't, that's what you're going to fear. And this is one of the ways that comes out. Not what he's saying, what's being said to him, right? He is being preyed on. I'm assuming he's nearing retirement. I'm assuming this is his first time moving abroad or looking at moving abroad. And he's got an ecosystem of people who've been siphoning money off of him, I'm assuming. And they see the golden goose leaving the country and discovering that they don't owe taxes. They don't need all these expensive services. And they're building a framework of fear to try to prey on him. These are predatory vendors. These are the things that we warn people about. You need to find honest people that you can trust when you get advice. And do some research of your own. If you looked at the tax code on your own, none of this would be going on. You cannot read the tax code and repeat the things you're saying. So look at the tax code. It'll answer everything, right? Trust me. And don't imply things. Don't claim the IRS is lying, and don't claim that words don't mean words. Just use the words that are on the page. Everything is clear. And if you have any doubt, which you should not, look at the examples. They will reinforce there's no possibility that what we're saying isn't correct. Thanks for joining me. Like and subscribe. All the stuff. I'll see you all later today.